I invite Dr. Hemant Dave. Dr. Hemant Dave studied history, archaeology, and Indian philosophy. He has taught postgraduate courses in history for more than 2 decades at Sardar Patel University, Ballav Vidyanagar, Gujarat. His area of interest and research are archaeology and literary tradition, historical consequences in ancient India, Sanskrit aesthetics, historical linguistics, medieval and modern Gujarati literature, 19th century Gujarat, and anthropology of religion. Some of his publications belong to this field. I invite him for his talk on the Narmada in literature and history.
Thank you. Namaskar. Today I will be speaking on the Narmada in literature primarily, and if time permits, little bit on history. So when I saw Narmada for the first time, I was studying in 5th, and we were traveling from Godhra to Navsari. And when I saw the Narmada, I thought it was a sea. It was a huge river, and for a kid who was studying in 5th, I can still very vividly and very distinctly remember how I felt when I saw this river Narmada. Also, my sister is married into a family which belongs to Sinur, which is on the banks of the Narmada. They now live in Chanod. But from childhood, I have heard a lot of stories about the river. And I have an intimate connection, if I may say so, with the river. I will begin my presentation with two verses. One is from Matsya Purana, which runs like this: Sarvaha punya jalaha punya sarvascheva samudragaha vishvasya matarah sarva papa harashubha, which means these rivers are sacred everywhere, and they are like the mothers to the world, and they cleanse us from all our sins. And the other one is from Padma Purana, which runs like this: Grame va yadi varanye nadya sarvatra pavanaha. Irrespective of the village or the forest, the rivers are everywhere sacred. Rivers are a natural object, just as oceans and mountains are. But at the same time, they are historical objects too. Not only as they change during the course of time, but they also act as spectator and as a force that shape historical events, processes, and activities. When I speak of these natural objects as molder of our life, as a factor that shape our lives, I must hasten to add, I do not propose any geographical determinism. Monsieur Fabre and Albert d'Agemont wrote a history of Rhine delineating its historical and economical problems. Fabre's brilliant pupil, Brodel, wrote that of the Mediterranean Sea and Mediterranean region. These natural objects are, in their turn, shaped by human interventions and thus become a product of human history too. This is well known. But these natural objects have another history. It is the history of how human beings viewed it and tried others to view it the way they view it over a period of time. And this I will be talking about this afternoon. Air, water, and food are the most basic necessities of all human beings, living beings rather. Many bands of hominids prefer to live at sites not very far from water, either river, rivulet, streams, or lake. With the advent of agriculture, everything changed. Human beings now chose river as their primary home. Soon, riverine civilization flourished on the Sindhu and Saraswati in India, Euphrates and Tigris in Mesopotamia, Yellow River in China, and elsewhere. Of course, Nile in Egypt too. No wonder that the rivers came to occupy a fundamental space in their lives, symbolism, religion, and mythology. At times, given their all-nurturing capacity, it was also believed that rivers came from the heaven to earth. The descent of Ganga from the heaven is a famous example. India is one of the few countries that are named after rivers. We do not know how the ancient Harappans called the regions, but the Vedic people referred to their home as Sapta Sindhavaha, land of 7 rivers, in the late books of the Rig Veda, which is mirrored in the Hapta Hindava in the contemporary or later Western texts. The word Sapta Sindhu is found in latest books of the Rig Veda, but also in early books. The word Sapta Sindhu occurs in the 8th mandala. While there is no unanimity among scholars as to which these 7 rivers are, it is quite certain that the region covering the modern Punjab, Haryana, and northern Rajasthan is the core area of these rivers. Vedic people calling the land after the rivers show that they attached a great importance to rivers and to the waters in general. Varuna is called, among other things, a king of waters. The purifying qualities of water are highly prized. The Saraswati, the modern Hakkar Gagra, is lauded as best among mothers, best among rivers, best among goddesses. Naditama, Ambitama, Ambitame, Naditame, Saraswati. This is how it goes. Devitama, in an early hymn, which is in the 2nd mandala of the Rig Veda. This is the beginning of deification of rivers as mothers and goddesses. After the desiccation of Saraswati, the Ganga, arguably the easternmost river in the Rig Veda, became the most important and sacred river for the Hindus. It is important to note here that Ganga is mentioned just twice in the Rig Veda. And if we accept the identification of Jahnavi as Ganga, it is mentioned 2 more times. It is praised above all, Saraswati, I'm talking about Saraswati. It is praised above all for its purificatory powers. It seems Saraswati's sanctity, purificatory, and life-giving qualities, divinity, and reverence for it derived ultimately from Saraswati, was later transferred to other rivers in entire India. Innumerable rivers in India are called Ganga. For example, Daman Ganga in South Gujarat. The Godavari is called Dakshina Ganga, and so is Kaveri. Narmada is also called Dakshina Ganga. The word Tirtha occurs in the Rig Veda, where it means a path, a ford, and a holy place. The confluence of rivers is considered particularly holy in India. It is called Prayaga in Sanskrit. The word is derived from the root yuj, which means to join or to yoke, etc. The place where these 2 or more rivers conjoin is Prayaga. The holiest of such holy Prayaga is where the Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati meet, and which is therefore called the king of all Prayagas, Prayagaraja. There is no doubt that irrespective of the cultural and trade connections and occasionally military engagement between the north and the south, the conservative class shunned the regions falling outside their own land called Aryavarta, which was between the Vinashana, where the Saraswati disappears, in the west, and the Kalaka forest in the east, near Prayagaraja. The Himalaya in the north, and Pariyatra, also known as Vindhya, in the south. This is from Bodhayana, Vasishta, Manu, Patanjali, and Rajshekhara. So much so that in the 12th century or earlier, a polymath like Devana Bhatta, who himself was from the south, quotes Adi Purana to the effect that a person born in Aryavarta, Dvija or otherwise, here Dvija can means Brahmana or Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or these 3 upper varnas. Either Dvija or not Dvija, they should not cross Narmada, Sindhu, and Karatoya, which is in North Bengal. Aryavarte samutpanno dvijo va yadi va dvijah Narmadam Sindhu param cha karatoyam na langayet. So this is from Adi Purana. So we know that Atak is the place where Hindus are not supposed to cross, which is on the Sindhu. So in a similar way, Narmada is also said not to be crossed. Bodhayana calls the regions Avanti, Anga, Magadha, Surashtra, Dakshinapatha, Upavrutta, Sindhu, and Sovira as Sankirna Yoni, that is of mixed blood. If Narmada was considered by some as some sort of natural boundary between the north and the south, it also remains a fact that it was not seen as such by people at large who moved on both the banks. The word Sindhu have been derived by Paul Tima from Sinada, from the root Sith, which means natural boundary. So Narmada sort of acted as a natural boundary. But for many people, it was not a boundary as such. But these certainly were not watertight compartments as some believe. Bodhayana is clearly aware of the socio-cultural and religious modes of the south and that they differ from the north. In his commentary on this sutra, Govinda Swami defines the north and south thus: Dakshinena Narmada Uttarena Kanyatirtham Uttarastu Dakshina Himavantam Udvidasya, which means the region between Kanyakumari to the Narmada is south and from the Himalaya to the Vindhya is north. Compared with these rivers and their hoary antiquity, I'm talking about the northern rivers, the Narmada enters into Indian literature at a much later date. If you look at the history of the river Narmada, we realize that the earliest fossils of human beings in India are discovered on its deposits. These, along with a number of prehistoric sites all along, show that prehistoric human beings lived here for a very long time. The Narmada starts from Amarkantaka in the Satpura range, tributaries from which majorly feed the Narmada. Given the escarpment of the Vindhyan range, the drainage from the north is nominal. Rivers from the Vindhyan range flow northward and join Ganga and Yamuna. Traverse as Narmada does between the Vindhyan and Satpura range through a rift, it does not form a large alluvial plain for much of its course like Sindhu or Ganga Yamuna in the north. Nor was it used for irrigation until very recently. As the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica notes, the river is not used for irrigation. Understandably, then, people living on the banks had to rely on monsoon for rain despite the mighty river flowing by. The previous work includes Sri Kala Warriors Kamandalu, the 7 sacred rivers of Hinduism, which was published in 2014, and Deegan's piece in William Fisher's Towards Sustainable Development with a question mark, struggling over India's Narmada River, both of which can be avoided for the lack of academic rigor. Jürgen Noy's Narmada Parikrama, Circumambulation of the Narmada River on the tradition of a unique Hindu pilgrimage, which was published by the Brill in 2012, is a better contribution. In the first chapter of the textual tradition, he gives an overview of the sources dealing with the Narmada, but he leaves out the inscriptions as well as Jaina and Buddhist sources, as well as Indian Kavya literature. Though undoubtedly incomparably older than the Ganga and other Himalayan rivers, the Narmada registers herself in literature much later. If we look at the early literature of India, Narmada is conspicuous by its absence. The first reference I'm quoting from Ramayana, while dispatching one team of monkeys to the south, Sugriva refers to Narmada as impassable, Durga, and as infested with huge serpents, Mahoraga Niveshita. This is from the 4th Kanda. This has been shown to be a late addition. This entire episode of sending these monkey parties to the different directions has been shown to be a later addition, which is a Kshepaka. In the 6th Kanda, Narmada is associated with Rukshavanta, which is another name of Vindhya, especially the eastern side of the Vindhya Parvata. The all remaining mentions of the river are from the Uttarakanda, which is decidedly added later, much later to the Ramayana. These are from the Ravana and Kartavirya Arjuna's episode, which is mentioned in the Uttarakanda. Narmada's purificatory qualities are mentioned in this episode, and and references have been made thrice to Ganga while talking about Narmada. And it also mentions fauna of the rivers: buffaloes, young deer, lions, tigers, bears, elephants, Chakravaka, Karanda, Hamsa, Jalakukkuta, and Sarasa. Thus, it is safe to assume that to the original parts of the Ramayana, the Narmada was at best a frontier river, perhaps an unimportant river. The Mahabharata mentions it for 15 times, but more often than not, it is just as a name of the river. The Vana Parvat twice associates it with Vaidurya Parvata, sometimes identified with Satpura range. It is also mentioned as flowing nearby the Rukshavat Parvat, as we saw. It is also mentioned in the Ramayana, and which is taken to mean Vindhya on the eastern side. Surprisingly, it is not mentioned in the Jataka stories, which mention Barukacha many times, which is modern Bharuch. In the entire early Buddhist literature, it is not mentioned if you go by Malala Shekhara's Dictionary of Pali Proper Names. Similarly, in the Jaina literature also, it does not feature much. The Avashyaka Sutra Churani quotes the famous second half of a verse, Diya Kagana Bibesi Ratti Tarasi Nammadam, which is Prakrit. If translated into Sanskrit, it would read something like this, Diva Kakarvad Bito Ratro Tarati Narmada. During the daytime, this lady who is afraid of what you call kakarav kavwa jo bolta hai, usse. She is afraid of that. But in the nights, she swims across the Narmada to meet her lover. This is from Avashyaka Sutra Churani. We know a good deal about Bharuch as port from the Periplus. In Indian literature, Bharukache is called Dronamukha, which means a place approachable from the waters and the land. Jalasthala Nirgama Pravesha Pattana, Shakate bhi Daure ki no va bhi gamyam, Tat Pattanam Yatha Bharukacham. So, a port which is approachable from land as well as water is called Dronamukha, and Bharukacha is one of the examples quoted by Avashyaka Sutra Churani. Tamralipta is another example which is quoted in this text. One could reach Bharukacha thus from the sea, Gulf of Khambat, and the river Narmada, as well as by land routes. It is also said that Bharuch was under Pradyota, the king of Avanti. His Duta, Loha Janga, would visit Bharuch, often carrying the orders of the king. The people of Bharuch, presumably the traders, were so annoyed with him that he sought to kill him by poisoning him, but the lucky man somehow survived. This story is given again in the Avashyaka Sutra Churani. This is the only place where we find reference to Narmada. Bhrugukacha is of course a later name, and hence the story of its association with Bhrugu is a later addition. Jaina literature mentions Bharuch as a stronghold of the Buddhists and the Jainas. This much is for the religious literature of the Hindus, earlier literature, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Buddhist and Jain literature. There is no doubt that the great poet Kalidasa was familiar with the river. His early play, it also occurs in the Raghuvamsha, but I am not mentioning it here. But this is historically important, so I am talking about this. In his early play, Malavikagni Mitram, it is said that Veerasena, a brother of the king Dharini, born of a Vaishya mother, was appointed in charge of a frontier fort on the Narmada by Agnimitra. It is interesting to note that the fortress has been called a frontier fort. Antapala Durga is the word which is used in the Sanskrit. It is in the later Puranic literature that Narmada is praised as a very sacred river, and stories of its birth along with innumerable tirthas are recounted. The birth of the Narmada is recounted in the Puranas like this. After killing Andhakasura, Shiva calmly sat on the mountain Maikala, and that is why Narmada is also called Maikala Sutta. There he was approached by Vishnu and other gods. They requested him to find a way out to get rid of the scene of killing of the demons. Shiva heard them, and that very moment, a drop from his crescent moon fell upon the earth. No sooner did it fall on the earth, a beautiful appeared. She was as dark as the petals of a blue lotus, with beautiful limbs, beautiful teeth, lovely face decked with all ornaments. Seeing her, all gods bowed to her and said, "Since the very sight of yours, giving us pleasure, you will be known on the earth as Narmada." Narma means pleasure in Sanskrit, and Da means giver. Yato dadasi no narma chakshusham tvam vipashyatam tato bhavishyase devi vikhyata bhuvi Narmada. This is how it is said in the Puranas. The word is explained otherwise also. Even during the drought, the river does not become thin or desiccate, and hence the name. Forthwith, the girl assumed the form of a river. It is said that the river was born at noon on the 7th bright day of Magha, Ashwini being the constellation, and it was a Sunday, and the sun was in Capricorn. The reference to Ravi Var, or Ravi Dina as it is called in the Sanskrit, is important. The Matsya Purana mentions a number of ghatas and tirthas on the Narmada, and in passing refers to Angaraka Dina, which is Tuesday. Angaraka Dine pujayetu Shivam, and Angaraka Navyam Shivam Snapayet. Now, this reference to these 2 days, Angaraka Dina and Ravi Dina, are important because we know that the names of the days were adopted in India at a much later date. We can safely infer from this that the passages mentioning Narmada with Ravi Dina and Angaraka are later additions. The Narmada Mahatmya, which has been which is there in a number of Puranas, seems to have been composed by Shiva from northern bank of the river. As it says, northern bank of the Narmada is equal to Rudraloka. It is said in the Puranas. It is also clear that it is a pretty late addition in an otherwise early Purana. Rajendra Chandra Hazra correctly believes that it must have been incorporated at a very late date. Though Hazra does not give any proof, the following 2 verses from Karuna Bhyudaya Stotra of Bhrugu, which is in Matsya Purana, which runs like this: Sattva Rajasastam Sthityupotte Vinashane Deva Yama Niyam Yagna Dan Veda Bhyasasya Dharan Yoga. It is derived, I think so, from the Shiv Mahimna Stotra, where it is said Bahula Rajse Vishvat Patto Bhavaya Namo Nama and so on. The other one is Tvad Bhakte Sarvamidam Narhantihi Kala Sahasrams, and this is derived, so I believe, from Shiv Mahimna Stotra, which runs something like this: Diksha Danam Tapas Tirtham Jnanam Yoga Dikakriya Mahimnastav Pathasya Kalar Narhati Sodashim, and therefore must be later than the Shiv Mahimna Stotra. The names of Narmada are many: Narmada, Reva, as I said, Maikala Suta, Surasa, Krupa, Mahati, Vipapa, Vishalya, and so on and so forth. The river is called Purva Ganga, which means older than Ganga. She is hailed as the daughter of Shiva. She is called Shiva Suta. The pebbles of the Narmada are worshipped as linga form of Bhagavan Shiva. It is called in Hindi, Narmada ke jitne kankar utne shankar, or Narmada ke kankar sab Shiv Shankar. And this seems to have been derived from the Puranic adjunction Tvadapsu ya shilaha sarvaha shivakalpa bhavantu taha. Banaganga, or linga-shaped pebbles of the river, usually but not always of white quartz. The Vishnu Purana narrates the story to explain the meaning of the word Nagna and the story of how the gods defeated the demons. It is said Maya Moha, who was produced from the body of Vishnu, went to the banks of the Narmada where the demons were living, preached them the religion of the naked, which is Jainism. This story, as correctly argued by Hazra, was most probably interpolated at a later date. This means it may have been incorporated into Vishnu Purana at a later date than 5th century CE. This is what he says. If anything, this could be taken to mean that Narmada was inhabited by the Buddhists and Jainas. Ashoka's grandson Samprapti is hailed as a great Jaina king who ruled from Ujjaini or Avanti. The Vishnu Purana narrates another story where Narmada marries Purukutsa, but I am skipping it. The Matsya Purana praises Narmada among all rivers. It is said, during the deluge and destruction of the world, Narmada alone, among others, will survive. It is further said that above the Brahmanda, is situated the world called Manasa, where eternal Pitaraha named Somapa. Somapa means drinkers of the divine Somarasa live. Their mind-born daughter is famous as Narmada, which became a water-carrying river in the south and which purifies all creatures. Lokastu manasa nama brahmando parisamstita yesham tu manasi kanya narmada nama vishruta somapa nama pitoro yatra tishtanti shashvataha narmada nam tesham tu kanya toyavaha sarit bhutani ya pavayati dakshina pathagamini. This is clearly inspired by the story of Ganga's descent from the heaven. In the Matsya Purana, the story is narrated how Bhagavan Shiva destroyed Tripura and his 3 cities. Matsya Purana chapters starting from 190 enumerates holy places on the Narmada. I have listed them all, but I am not reading it out. But it is said that from Narmada Sangama to Amarkantaka, there are 10 crore tirthas. Narmada Sangamam Yavaccha Amarkantakam Atrantare Tirthakotyo Dashasmruta. So 10 crore tirthas are said to be located on the river from, on the one side, from Ganga, what I said? Narmada Sangam to Amarkantak. And yes. This Purana describes at length the Mahatmya of the river. After listening to the greatness of Kasi Kshetra Avimukta in the text, the sages requested to know more about Narmada. The Suta then narrates the conversation between Yudhishthira and sage Markandeya. The sage says, Narmada is the best among all rivers that cleanse sins. Narmada Saritam Sreshta Sarva Papa Pranashini. When the sage calls it the best, Sreshta, it is clear that he puts it above the Ganga and other rivers. Indeed, he says later, Ganga is Punya bestower at Kanakhala near Haridwar and Saraswati at Kurukshetra in Haryana. But Narmada is so everywhere, irrespective of the place, either of villages or forests. The waters of the Saraswati cleanse one of all sins if one takes bath or drinks it for 3 days. That of the Yamuna, 7 days. That of Ganga, instantaneously. But the very sight of the waters of the Narmada cleans one of all sins. No question of taking a bath. Punya Kanakale Ganga Kurukshetre Saraswati Grame Vadi Aranye Punya Sarvatra Narmada Tribi Saraswatam Toyam Saptahena tu Yamunam Sadhya Punati Gangayam Darshana Deva Narmadam. But little later in the same it is also said that as Bhagwan Shiva told me, the merit of bathing in and giving dana in the Saraswati, Ganga and Narmada is equal. So there is this ambivalence. At one place it is said that it is better than Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati, and other place it's said to be equal to them. While describing the Shukla Tirtha, it is further said that the Ganga is sacred at Kankal. The same story is narrated here in the Reva Khanda. The Bhumi Khanda of Padma Purana in a like manner praises the Narmada called Reva there. It attributes more purificatory power to it than the Ganga and Sindhu. And the story is narrated, which is an interesting story. Once Indra convened a conference of the all Tirthas and asked them, which of you can absolve the 16 great sins, Mahapataka? After due deliberation among themselves, the Tirthas answered that Prayaga, Pushkara, Agatirtha and Varanasi are the 4 among us capable of destroying any sin. Now the story goes like this. Now a Kshatriya named Vidura from Panchala was a Brahmaghatin. A Brahmana Chanda Sharma from Magadha was a Guru Ghatin. Another Brahmana Veda Sharman committed incest, Agamya Gamana, as it is called in Sanskrit. A Vaishya called Vanjula drank wine and killed a cow. And all of them they meet. They were advised by a great Siddha to take a dip in the 4 above-mentioned tirthas and were assured that they would be free from their sins. They did, and they were relieved of their sins. However, because of their sins, the 4 tirthas, which is Prayaga, Pushkara, Agatirtha and Varanasi, they became black because of their sin. To get rid of their sins and black color, they visited all the 64 tirthas, but to no avail. They even visited the Manas Sarovara, but upon their taking a bath there, the sacred lake itself became polluted and became black. These 5 at last came to the northern bank of the Narmada, took a bath at the confluence of the Narmada and Kubja, shed their black color and became pure again. It is then said, other tirthas roar as long as Narmada is not within the sight, meaning thereby, when Reva is seen, all other tirthas fall silent. Yavad garjantu tirthani yavad revana drushyate. In the Reva Khanda, it is also said that Ganga comes to Narmada to get rid of the sins. She comes on the 7th day of Vaishakha to Narmada to bathe in the form of a black cow. This place is called Nandakeshwara and hence considered a confluence of Narmada and Ganga. The merits of taking a bath, of doing Pitru Puja, of giving dana and dakshina to Brahmanas, of worshipping deities, or of even dying here are mentioned in an understandably hyperbolic fashion. In the Reva Khanda, a veritable Purana by itself, which is part of Skanda Purana, It is found, this Reva Khanda is found in two unequal versions, one which 116 chapters and other with 232 chapters. So obviously, one is shorter version, the other is longer version. As per the thumb rule of text criticism, the shorter version is earlier. We have quotations in later Nibandha Sangraha like Hemadri's Chaturvarga Chintamani, which are found verbatim in the currently available Reva Khanda. Unlike other Puranas, here the Narmada does not vie with the Ganga. She says, just as the Ganga is the destroyer of all great sins in the north, so be I in the south. And just having descended from the heavens, the Ganga is famous on the earth, O Lord of the gods, so let me become the Ganga of the south, Dakshina Ganga. Uttare Janvihi Deshe Mahapataka Nashini, Bhavami Dakshina Marge, Sargad Gamyam Gangeti Yatha Kyatam Kshito Vibho, Tatha Dakshina Gangeti Bhavet Tridasheshwaraha. A deep in the Narmada is equal. A deep in the Narmada is equal to the merit of studying all the Vedas, all Yagnas, all Dana and Upavasa, and it is equal to holy bath in all other tirthas. Unlike Ganga, which boasts some of the biggest cities in India, the Narmada has few. Encyclopedia Britannica, as I said before, it says that there are no irrigation in the, on the Narmada. It seems some decisive battles were fought on the banks of the Narmada. The Pratihara king Bhoj, first son of Ramabhadra, is claimed to have his empire from the Himalaya to the Narmada. This is in Barak copper plate. He has also defeated Rashtrakuta king Krishna II on the bank of the Narmada and annexed Malwa to his region. We also know that a very famous battle between Harsha and Pulakeshin II was fought on the banks of the river Narmada. As I said, there is also an ambivalence regarding the purificatory powers of the Narmada. The following story from the Naradiya Purana is an instance. Mitrasaha Saudasa, son of Sudasa, was cursed by Brahmana woman to be a Rakshasa, and he cursed her to be a Pishachi in the forest of the Narmada. The story is variously told in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, Shiva Purana, Vishnu Purana, Bhagavata Purana, and other Puranas. However, it was only after the waters, it was only... Huh? No, I'm done. This is the last page. Only after, with the waters of the Ganga, that they were redeemed to their original selves back. It is also the only river for which parikrama is performed, and tomorrow he is going to speak about it, so I am skipping that. It is the only river for which parikrama is performed, and it takes months and even years. The more time one spends, the more meritorious it is said to be. At some 2,700 odd kilometers, it is also the longest one. The Kashi Panchakoshi Parikrama involves, usually that is 5 days, and covers around 90 kilometers. The Bruj Chaurasi Kosha Yatra has little more than 250 kilometers. The Girnar Lili Parikrama, to be completed in 5 days, has 36 kilometers. But this Narmada Parikrama is said to be completed in 3 years and 3 months and 13 days. The waters of the Narmada are also said to have miraculous quality, and that makes the clothes whiter. So during this medieval period, Narmada and Bharuch were the major center where these cloths were bleached. And I have found one reference which is there in the Puranas, and which I find important to quote here. While describing Shukla Tirtha, as it is said, Shukla means white. While describing the Shukla Tirtha, it is said, just as a washerman washes dirty clothes and makes it white with the help of water, so this Shukla Tirtha cleans you from all your sins and from the birth onwards. Rajakena yatha vastram shuklam bhavati varina ajanma janitam papam shukla tirtham vyapahoti. So I find this interesting because it has some connection with the tradition of washing, bleaching the cotton cloths in Narmada. And we also know that there was this tradition of drawing the image of Ardhanarishwara on a cloth. Ardhanarishwaram Devam Pate Bhaktya Likha Payet, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is that this little survey of literature, it shows that Narmada does not occur in the early literature, but it is mentioned only after, say, 800 CE onwards, and probably from the first millennium onwards. So it is not mentioned in the earlier literature, and it shows that, of course, this literature, the earlier literature was composed by those who were sort of living in the northern area of India, in the Aryavarta region, and therefore they were not much interested in the Dakshina Patha or in the southern India. But these references in the Puranic literature, and especially the Narmada Mahatmya, as I have shown, they are composed at a much later date. Thank you. No questions? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So this is just from our earlier presentation, but the reference of the Narmada to the Ganga, it happens also in some of the tribal narratives. So could you just explain a little bit? So you said in one time it was called Purva Ganga, which is the older than the Ganga. But what are the other kind of references that are there to the, you said one was Dakshina Ganga, I guess. But is there some tradition of referring to the, what kind of, like, is Ganga just a general term that people used for rivers? Or did the Narmada have some, did they have some special terms for that? Or I don't know, I'm just wondering.
If I understood you correctly, see, the word Ganga is, of course, an appellation for the river which flows from Gangotri to the Ganga Sagara. But Ganga is also a word which is used for any river. For example, in Bengali, the word Gang means any river or Nala. So when we, in context of Narmada, many a time the reference to Ganga is evoked. I think it is a kind of, to show that it is as legitimate, as Ganga. So there is an ambivalence in literature where somewhere it is said to be more purificatory, more sacred than the Ganga. And at times it's shown to be, I want to be like Ganga, as it is said in Matsya Purana, that I want to be like Ganga of the south. So there is this ambivalence in the Puranas, where at times it is said to be more sacred than Ganga, and at times she wants to be as good as Ganga. Is that what you asked? And I am unaware of any connections, any references to tribal literature in which Narmada is compared with Ganga.
In the oral creation stories of the Bilalas and along the Narmada, so just in the creation story when they narrate it over a few days, that's when they refer to Narmada as Ganga. Now, in every day they don't refer, but only in those some recitations in the tribal, they refer to Narmada as Ganga. So I was just interested that there might be some.
Issue arises because of definition of literature. He refers to tribal literature. And there are mentions of.
That is what, But I am not aware. But I am not aware of any. I have not seen tribal literature that way. So it could be there, yes, as you said. So it is there in the Puranic literature, and it is also there in tribal oral literature, as you say. Yeah. It is there, yes.